Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn. Welcome to my combined April and May 2023 Starlink report. In this video, we'll look at some Starlink related news items and my latest performance numbers. But first, a quick look at some fantastic drone footage submitted to me as We-Roll. B-roll with the spirit of we. Stay tuned till the end for more great footage from Andrew Miller. The first bit of news is the hardware discount, still happening, well, at least as of today, for rural Canadian regions. $199 instead of $759 to purchase the basic dish setup, the hardware. That's an incredible $560 savings for your upfront cost. So if you've been on the fence because of that, yikes, purchase price sticker shock, well, now's the time to jump on the bandwagon. The second bit of news I wanted to share was, that threat of a 1 terabyte per month Starlink data cap? Well, even though it was a soft cap, it's actually gone away completely. This data cap used to be explained in their so-called fair use policy, which has quietly changed. It still starts by saying, Starlink's fair use policy ensures that our customer base is not negatively impacted by a small number of users consuming unusually high amounts of data. Sort of a scold. But now it goes on to say they may take network management measures. In other words, throttle customers who consistently use an abnormal amount of data. Now, to me, this is probably a better approach, rather than just setting a single arbitrary cap for everyone, which immediately draws flack and makes people anxious about their data usage. What do you think? My own data usage has been consistently well under 300 gigabytes per month. This past month, however, was a bit of an anomaly, as you can see here. This odd peak is when I needed to upload a fairly large amount of work-related video data from my laptop to the cloud, about 75 gigs worth, and it really stands out. So another thing newsworthy related to Starlink service policies is the fact that they've renamed their service tiers a bit. They now have standard and priority data for fixed service, then simply mobile data and mobile priority data for folks on the move. You may want to check that out. And they have reintroduced expected performance levels for each of these service plans. So for example, typical residential service, like what I have, is this column here, fixed standard data plan. And I can expect download speeds of 25 to 100 megabits per second during peak hours of usage and 5 to 10 megabits per second for uploads. Going forwards, I'll include a score in my own metrics showing how often these expected rates are met, specifically in the evening hours, which are considered peak hours of usage. One last bit of news. At the beginning of May, Starlink announced they had reached 1.5 million subscribers worldwide. So I added one more data point to the graph that I've been tracking. At the beginning of May, we have 1.5 million users, like I said, and 3,466 active satellites, which works out to an average of 433 subscribers per satellite, continuing to rise slowly over time. Well, in fact, that's about 30% more users per satellite than back in December, when Starlink announced they had surpassed 1 million subscribers. Now, obviously this is just an average, and the newer satellites have higher capacity, and the subscriber counts are maybe a little suspect, but it's an interesting metric to watch as things go forward. Speaking of metrics, let's check out my own personal experience metrics over the past 2 months, since I selfishly skipped putting out a report in April. Let's start with everyone's favorite, speed. Here we can see that the average download speed for April and May have been hovering around the 100 meg point, which is great. Now, a reminder that my metrics are based upon 60 measurements per month on a wired connection to a fixed server site. The 60 data points are evenly distributed between morning, afternoon, and evening readings. So my average download speed in May was 107 megabits per second down, with an average of 8.8 megs up. Ping, or latency, was 54 milliseconds. I like the fairly consistent average performance over the past 6 months. Nice. But these are averages. The actual speed tests continue to vary considerably from test to test. On this histogram, you can see how many of my tests fell into each speed range. This month, the highest candle was the 50 to 100 bucket, meaning more speed tests fell into that range than any other, which is a bit disappointing. But lots of tests did come in higher with a median of 98. My highest speed was 228 meg. My lowest? 9. Yikes. Here's a comparison to the previous 3 months. February was great, with its peak in the 100 to 150 range. Things have been slumping a bit since then, but still worthy of a thumbs up. Just remember how sad it was last August when more than half of my tests were below 50. Upload speeds show the same variation as, well, pretty much every other month in the past year, with 60% of the tests hitting in the 5 to 10 megs range. The average was 8.8. Slicing the data by time of day shows, again, a pretty typical trend, with speeds in the evening a bit worse than daytime due to more competition for the bandwidth. But 83 megs in the evening, on average, is still very good. And by the way, this is now where we can compare to Starlink's expected level of service. 25 to 50 milliseconds for ping, 25 to 100 megs for download, and 5 to 10 megs for uploads during peak hours, in other words, in the evening. Looking just at evening measurements, I found 95% of my speed tests, both up and down, were better than the minimum expected values, which is quite good. Latency, on the other hand, was only 15%. But I'm not too surprised at this. My ping measurement is to a site in Toronto, whereas Starlink's is very likely just to get to their ground station, which I'm not currently capturing. And to close off the speed stuff, here's a comparison with April. I definitely like May's more even distribution. So now let's switch to outages, where things are now officially really, really weird. But weird in a good way. This graph shows the number of dropout events I experienced per hour. As usual, I define a dropout as any outage over 11 seconds. Generally, shorter outages, say 2 or 3 seconds, are automatically healed by that network, even with real-time conversations like in an online meeting. Streaming video like Netflix or YouTube are almost completely immune to these dropouts because content is buffered at the receiving end. So I've had to change the scale of this graph again in order to even see April and May. They are that good. My total count for May was 0.04 dropouts per hour, which translates to about only 1 dropout per day on average. Amazing. So here's the weird part. I've outlined February to May for last year and this year, and you can see completely different trends. Now, last year I figured it made sense. Leaves were coming out on the nearby trees and probably interfering with the signal. And then it got better again in the fall when the leaves fell off again. But this year, it just keeps getting better, and the leaves are pretty close to being fully out. Assuming this continues, they will have solved my obstruction problem, presumably by tweaking the switching algorithm to take advantage of the more fully fleshed out constellation. This is great. Oh, and speaking of fleshing out the constellation, I caught a Starlink train going overhead again. These things are so out of this world when they go over. If you ever get a chance to see it, run out there and do it. Anyway, here's my other outage metric. Total number of outage minutes per day. Not surprisingly, it shows a similar beautiful trend. One thing that pops out here are the purple bands in April and May, network issues. In both months, we had some short but significant outages of about 10 minutes each, and they show up here as network issues. Well, there we have it. Some Starlink news and my latest user experience metrics. I'm still loving Starlink, especially now with pretty steady high speeds and dropouts being almost completely gone. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified of new videos. And there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below if you'd like to support my channel that way. Thanks for watching, and hang in there till the end to enjoy this stunning we roll footage from Canadian drone pilot Andrew Miller.